What's up, Wisconsin DECA? I'm Alan Whitmore, Arrowhead DECA Prez for the year, and I'm excited to present some tips and tricks for competitions with all of you. So this is my third year in DECA, and during my time in my chapter, I've done a lot to prepare for and participate in competition. So last year, I triple qualified for ICDC at state with my role play project and econ test, and I had the pleasure of going to ICDC in Atlanta while competing in the Automotive Services Marketing Series. So as for the topics of this video, we'll be covering three in particular. So study techniques, creative practice activities, and time management tips. So these are all super important for doing the best you can in your test taking experiences, but I found that they can be a little elusive, especially for the newer competitors. So if you can get these three things down, you'll be far better off as a competitor, and you'll definitely be able to get the edge over your competition. All right, with that in mind, let's jump right into the tips and tricks. So with study techniques, before you even begin studying, I highly recommend that you first familiarize yourself with the format of the test and the general concepts that will likely be on it. So there are different tests based on your competition category, so make sure you know which test you're taking before you start studying for it. Also, familiarize yourself with the format of the test, specifically how much time you will have and how many questions will be on the test, as well as what materials you can bring with you, such as a calculator if that is something that's allowed and needed on your test. By tailoring your studying to your specific test and its content, you'll be much more efficient in your studying and will be better prepared overall. So once you're familiar with your test, you can begin to study effectively. While general business background knowledge is always helpful, there are a few study techniques I like to use that I can tailor to my specific category. So first and foremost, I always recommend taking the practice tests. If you don't already have access to some, please ask your advisor or other members in your category if they know where to find them, or you can look for them online. Beginning by taking a test without preparation will let you acclimate to the format and the timing, so as I said before, getting used to how the test works, as well as show that it'll show what you know and what you don't at the start. So after that, you can then study more about the topics that you were unfamiliar with from the test, and then you can keep taking practice tests and sharpening your skills through that method. Second, flashcards and notes are always a classic yet dependable way to practice. So making flashcards, either physical ones or digital ones, things like Quizlet, they're always excellent for learning unfamiliar concepts. And there are a lot of pre-made sets out there as well for various DECA categories and topics. So you can find those online, or making your own is always a more effective way for tailoring the learning to your specific scenario. Of course, third, if there's anything you're struggling with, please feel free to reach out to your advisor and get help with anything related to testing, whether it's about the questions or format of the content or just the tests themselves. You can't really ask content questions during the test, but leading up to that, anything about format, content, anything like that, your advisors are always eager to help you out and succeed and see you succeed, so they're always a great resource for test preparation pursuits. So as for some creative practice activities, you can use these following ones to make your studying more interesting and interactive, and feel free to modify these as you see fit to suit your studying needs. So one strategy I found myself doing in preparation is, of course, taking practice tests, but also while you're doing that, go through it, and with the material you don't know, jot down some notes, whether it's the name of the concept or the scenario that you're unfamiliar with. And once you have that list of topics you're not fully familiar with, or maybe you don't understand at all, even if that may be the case, you take your sheet of notes, and once you're done with the test, you can search through the sheet and find the concepts that you're unfamiliar with, and of course familiarize yourself with those topics. You could also, if you have the time during the test, do it while you're going through the test, so you learn as you go while you progress through the questions. Additionally, after taking the practice test, you will also have this list of everything you struggled with, and that can be a very useful tool for maybe anything that you forget between the practice test and the real test as well. Of course, one service I would highly recommend is Quizlet's Learn Mode. So for the second fun activity I like to do, well, fun and interesting and keeps it interactive, instead of only flipping through note cards or writing down these notes, I would highly recommend you use Quizlet's Learn Mode. It's something that I've found to be very helpful in my test-taking journey, both in school and in DECA. And so taking the terms and questions you struggle with and having that tailored approach to learning and effectively memorizing all of the things you need to memorize, you can effectively tackle those more difficult topics as well. Also, a classic yet fun way to study is, of course, a study group. So getting grouped together with, similar test categories and studying with those DECA members can be a much more exciting experience than studying alone. You can do the flashcards together, learn mode. You can make study games out of the content, maybe a Kahoot or two. You can also take practice tests together as well and sort of go through that and learn with each other as you go through the practice tests. So by working together, you can refine your test-taking strategies and corroborate them with other members and see gaps in your content knowledge that you may not have thought about on your own. All right, so let's move on to some time management tips. So as always, there is a time crunch placed on your DECA exams, and given the limit to finish the test, you need to be cognizant of your pacing and time you are taking to complete each question. Of course, you'll be getting more efficient at this as you take more practice tests, but as for some additional tips to help you manage your time better, here are some of the ones I use in my test-taking career. So make sure to budget your time properly. So taking the total time you have for the test, dividing it by the number of questions, and seeing how long you have to answer each question can be a good guideline for seeing whether you're pacing yourself properly on the test. Of course, some questions will be quicker and some will be longer, but you can use this guideline as you go through the test to see, maybe if you're taking consistently longer to answer questions, you may have to pick up the pace a little to ensure that you finish in time. Also, if there's a question that seems like it'll take a while, you can mark it down and come back to it later. So this will let you get through the questions that you know really well, while still keeping you on track to finish the test in time, while having enough time left over at the end to go back to those difficult questions that you can then visit and do with the extra time you have at the end. Of course, make sure to put down at least an educated guess before skipping a question and coming back to it, as in the event that you don't have time to come back to it, any answer is better than none. As a final note, for many of these exams are a test of endurance. I know they are for me. The amount of questions can seem very overwhelming, especially in the amount of time allotted to finish them, and that can seem very daunting, but you need to make sure that you just power through and get to the finish line. So don't get overwhelmed by the amount you need to complete. Just keep going through it without letting your efficiency drop, and I'm sure you'll do great. All right, so I know that was a lot of information coming at you all at once, but I do hope these tips were helpful and easily actionable for you all. These are the strategies that I personally use to prepare for my DECA competition exams, and they've helped me immensely throughout my years of being a competitor. Overall, my biggest takeaways from these categories would be to tailor your studying efforts to your category, and definitely keep taking those practice tests, as they're very useful. Well, that's all for me for this video. Go out and apply these tips and tricks to your test preparation activities. I'm sure you'll all do great. Best of luck, everyone.